Great day, everyone. Hello out there. So, I am super excited about today's show. But before we get there, I have a question for you. How do you make decisions? Do you make decisions based on logic or do you make decisions based on emotion? Most people I talk to say, I'm definitely a logical decision maker, but I want you to know that all of us at our core are emotional beings. This means that even when you're speaking from logic, behind the scenes it's being powered by emotion. But what do we do when those emotions run off the track and get a little wild and crazy? Do we ignore them? Do we act on them? Or do we take that dial and do we adjust our temperature up and down? I am ready to dive into this one. I hope you are too as we get ready to lead above the grind. Let's get started. All right. Great day, everyone. So glad to be here with you for another episode. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Coffee with Rhonda show. We are your cup full of inspiration, revelation, and wit for today's savvy leader. And this is season 7, and we are on episode 88. So very excited. And in fact, we are only 3 episodes away from the end of the season already. Boy, how time flies. So super excited. If you're out there joining, pause right now. If you're watching live or if you're watching on a replay, listening later, please like and share the video. There's someone out there that will get something from this conversation today. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can get there super easy by going to coffeewithrhondashow.com. Now, with all of that being said, my name is Rhonda Y. Williams, and I'm your host for the show. I am what I like to call an RSOL, or a recovering stressed out leader. So I believe that it is far past time for us to modernize the way that we think about leadership, right? And it must include well-being and growth as an essential component of effective, sustainable, successful leadership. So if you want to learn more about the work that I do in the world, you can visit abovethegrindleadership.com. You can also go and test your own emotional quotient and your emotional intelligence by visiting testmyeq.com. Are you brave? Are you bold? Are you ready? So I invite you to take that test. So today in my cup, I don't know if you all can see what it says. It says, yet despite the look on my face, you are still talking. So I thought that would be a fun one for today. I have mocha coffee today in my cup. That's what's going on with me. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So thanks so much for tuning in. Let's go to our super caffeinated co-host and say good morning. Miss Roz Jones. Great day to you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Roz Jones, the CEO and owner of Jacksonville's Best Caregivers, where we help expand the life of your loved one. Why do I do it? I do it to help the caregiver to reduce that SOS on their journey, which is being stressed, overwhelmed, and providing safety and security. When you can't do it all, you give us a call.
Awesome. Thank you, Miss Roz. Where's your cup?
Y'all know I'm drinking that alkaline water. You know, I'm keeping myself cleansed.
All right, Miss Roz. All right. Great evening to you, Mireille.
Hello. It's good morning for me because it's past midnight, and I'm on Sunday today. So good morning to you, and it's good morning for everyone. My name is Mireille Toulekima. I'm the greatness engineer. You know me. I'm all about greatness, and I'm here to help you to identify this greatness that you have, step into it, unleash it, and become the best version of yourself. And today I'm drinking something really, really yummy. It's celery juice with lime and honey. So really good.
Celery juice with lime and honey. That sounds so
Yeah.
interesting, Marae. Oh, very cool. A new drink for us today on the show. At some point, we need to do a book of drinks that people share when they're on the Coffee with Rhonda show. Some of them get
Really
quite
good.
interesting. That's awesome. And I want to welcome to the coffee table a friend and someone I have been communicating with for a couple of years. I think it's been 2 years that we have been talking about having you on the show. We connected and we're really aligned in what we think and how we manage and process our emotions. Dr. Pat Baxter is just an amazing, amazing person. So excited that you're here. She's a 4-time author and she's a global conference speaker. We are so happy to have you at the coffee table. Dr. Pat, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do in the world, and then tell us what you have in your cup.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And Rhonda, all I can say is we did it. We did it after all this time.
We did.
And Roz, Marie, how are you? It's a pleasure to be. A little bit about myself. I am a born and raised New Yorker, if you couldn't tell by. I am Latina. My parents were Puerto Ricanos, and I am someone who has, through my experiences, learned a lot about how emotions affect us. And it's the reason I went into the research around emotional intelligence and conflict management, because I wish I had known more that combination as I was growing up and going into the corporate world. I'm a corporate veteran, 30 years, and I am now in my own business, women in the workplace.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you so much. And what do you have in your cup?
This is my very, very special cup. It is something called Dark Magic, and it is a coffee by Green Mountain, and I have this is my start and sometimes my end.
Awesome. Dark magic. All right. So we got 2 new things in the cup today. Thank you so much. Let's say good morning out there. So Dr. Paulette Dale is here. Hey, Paulette, how are you? Great to see you. Good morning, my darlings. Happy to view and learn from Dr. Pat Baxter. Yes, I cannot wait to dive into this one. Thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to tell us what you have in your cup, Paulette. So Chrissy is out there watching. Thank you so much for joining, Chrissy. Cup full of inspiration. She says, love it. And Chrissy, you like celery juice too? I will confess, I have never had celery juice. So I don't know if I like it or not. I would probably like it better with the honey and all that going on, but thank you so much. Joe Beth is also out there. And Joe Beth says, good morning, here from Dallas. Water in her cup. I respond to both logically and emotionally. There you go, Joe Beth. In the workplace, ensuring people have clarity on job expectations helps me and the people I lead take out some of the emotion. For those in which push those emotional buttons, I use HR and my supervisor to keep me in check. So you sounds like you've got a strategy. Thank you so much, Joe Beth. Victoria, hey, Victoria, great to see you out there. Good morning, wonderful lady. She says, Julie is out there. Julie was on the show. I think it was last season, Julie, that you joined us. Great to see you out there as well. Don't forget to tell us what you have in your cup. Victoria has Italian roast Starbucks. I like the Italian roast, Victoria, really good. And Paulette says, I'm drinking simple decaf, and I love Mireille's celery juice with honey and lime idea. It's a great idea. We might all have to show up on the show with Celery juice with honey and lime.
Yeah.
All right. So
I only want celery and a Bloody Mary. That's all I want.
Okay. All right. Isn't that a morning drink too?
Yes, it is. It could be any
It
time of the day.
is. It is.
There you go. So completely on theme. So let's dive into this one today as we get our conversation started. So today we're talking about emotions. So I want to start by setting a bit of foundation. So Pat, would you just share with us a little bit about what are emotions? Like, what are they even, right? And let's start there.
Well, that's interesting. It was when I started to do my doctoral research, and I decided emotional intelligence was where I was going to focus. That was my main question. What is an emotion? It's and when I ask people, when I'm doing trainings, I ask people, what do you think an emotion is? And what I get is anger, joy, and they're the actual emotion, but what is it? And what I started to do is just pour through readings and books and anything I could find. I actually started to read some psychological profiles as well, just to see what they said about what an emotion is. And an emotion is and this is going to be interesting, consistent reaction to stimuli. So what that essentially means is, for example, you may take a bite of an apple. Suddenly, you are transported to another experience that you've had in your life, and you will feel the emotion come up from that experience. I had that actually happen to me. I was in Europe, and I ordered a soup, and the soup had all kinds of beautiful seafood in it. And I took one sip, and I started to cry. And my colleagues looked at me and said, "What happened?" And then suddenly I realized that it reminded me of my mom and what she used to make for me, the kinds of soup. So that emotion came up. And it's that response that is consistent. It is something that, unless you have what we call a significant emotional event around it, you will consistently have that response, and that should scare us.
So Dr. Pat, let me just ask: are you saying that emotions are almost akin to memories that live in us, in our body, and our minds?
They stimulate a past experience.
Mm-hmm.
And most of our experiences do have some kind of emotion attached to it.
Right.
So when we're recalling something from our childhood, or we are recalling an experience or an encounter that we had with someone, we will be very likely, feeling the same kind of response, the same kind of visceral response that we had in the experience itself. That's why emotions are so powerful, and why remaining conscious of what you are feeling, and when possible, thinking back to, when have I felt like this before, and why, what was happening.
Really important. So, Christina says yes, body memories is what she's taking away from this. And then Chrissy also said, oh, coconut milk, that she's been loving coconut milk and turmeric and cayenne pepper. Huh, that actually sounds delicious, coconut milk. So I made another one to add to the list. So Victoria has a question. Victoria said, isn't that the same thing that happens with smells? And I think so. And she also said, are emotions your thoughts? So we should unpack that a bit, because I think, Victoria, that emotions are not the same as thoughts, but emotions are powered by thoughts, right? And experiences, as Dr. Pat said. So Roz and Mireille, when we think about emotions and how they show up, how we show up every day, why does it matter? And then we're going to tie this into Victoria's questions, but Okay, so we have these emotions, we have these experience. What difference does it make? And are they good or bad that we have these emotions in the way that you think about them, Roz?
I think it depends on what the situation is, because one emotion is not going to cover every situation. There's no blanket for it. Um, as I think about emotions, sometimes um, your atmosphere can stimulate your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Change your atmosphere, the people that you're around. We talked about smells, taste, triggers. And sometimes I hear people say that I'm overstimulated and I'm getting anxiety. I was at a conference recently, and the woman was sitting quiet. And I'm like, what's wrong? She's like, I'm overstimulated. I'm having emotions. And I'm like, I didn't know that could happen. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
this was my first experience watching someone literally sitting in the corner, almost in a fetal position, because
Mm.
as people were coming in the room, she was getting overstimulated. So I don't know if it was
Mm.
because this was one of her first times out since COVID. That could have happened.
Very
So so like I said, it just depends on what situation our emotions in, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Sometimes I know for me, my emotions um, um, are part of my procrastination.
Mm.
I was working on one thing, and then now the emotions take me off track. So those are some of the things that I see with emotions, and I hope I answered the question and wasn't
Yeah,
baffled.
yeah, no, good, because I think the way that we think about emotions is important, right? And so, Mireille, as you think about sort of build on what we're talking about here, and emotions being good or bad depending on the situation, depending on how we view them, right?
Mhm.
How do they affect us in the way that we show up?
I always link emotion to feelings. How do you feel? In front of a situation, how do you respond, and what feeling is coming out first, and how you manage that, because there are feelings that you can manage really well, and some other can actually surprise you. So, like what Rose was saying, it really depends of the circumstances that and how you get triggered, because there are things that actually trigger you more than any other things, and you're gonna have strong feelings, or react really badly. And there are other emotions that you can manage better, because they don't actually trigger anything. You can easily live with them. And I think that's the difficult part, because sometimes we don't really know what triggers us, and it's important that we know ourselves. It's important that we have an idea of how we respond to certain situation, to certain words, to certain environment, to certain people, because we have people around us that can trigger some strong emotion, and really get the worst out of us, or the best out of us. So it is a very complex, complex emotion, are very, very, very complex, and they actually define who you are, I think, in a way, because they show your good and bad side, and it's you. We have this very good side and this bad side. Sometimes we just want to show the good side, but then the triggers and the emotion that are coming from certain situation or certain people actually show this other side that we're trying to hide.
Yeah, it's so important. So emotions are one way that we show to others. I think I would reframe it just a bit to say, like, emotions are one way that we show to others who we've become,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, Dr. Pat, there's a whole school of thought out there around, can we really manage our emotions or not? Where do you stand in this whole art? Because there's a whole debate. Some people are like, yeah, you can manage your emotions, you can control them, you can do all of these things, and other people are like, you can't do anything with them other than be aware of them and then decide what you're going to do. Where do you fall in that?
well. With the leaders that I coach, my personal belief is that leadership begins and ends with self-awareness, being tuned in to what your body is telling you. And I'll share this story, and I share this when I speak about emotional intelligence. Growing up, we had an uncle who lived with us, and growing up in a very, I'll say it this way, volatile kind of environment, emotions were all over the place. And my uncle always used to say to me, Patty, don't be so emotional. You're too emotional. So what was my response? I started pushing it down.
Right.
It shows up.
Yeah.
It shows up. And as truthfully as, and I'm very open about this, as I grew up, I started to compensate and try to dull those emotions through alcohol. And that's something that I keep seeing, and I know that that was my response to everything. I believe that if nothing else, look at the emotion, identify it, name it. Because once you name it, you are on the path of identifying where that came from. And then you have the choice to accept it, deal with it, or to keep feeling that distress. And for my clients, I really urge, and this is something I require all my clients to do, is to journal. Write it down, write it out, because then, frankly, it's out of your brain. It's out of your brain and it's out of your system, and you can look at it on the paper and decide what you want to do with it.
Wow. No, I love the idea of writing it down. So we've got some great conversation happening out here. So Christina said school bullying to workplace bullying can cause PTSD, and this is mental abuse. Global workplace bullying awareness campaigns in 2022 and 2023. And that ties back into the emotion, right? So when bullies or whoever, like you said, leadership begins and ends with awareness. When you are not aware of your own emotions, you begin to act in ways that potentially negatively impact others. I think that has a lot to do with this bullying. And then Victoria said, here, Roz, when you were speaking earlier. She also said how our emotions, feelings, and conciseness play into the way on how we show up. I think it goes back, Victoria, to what Dr. Pat was just saying about awareness. When you are aware of something, you can change it. So years ago, when I was leading hospitals and nursing departments, I would say to my team that I have every confidence that we can manage this and deal with it together if you can become aware of it, right? If you can see what I see, if you can get in that space with me, I have no confidence that we can move towards a resolution if you can't even see it. Right? When you lack awareness, how do you begin to adjust, change, transform if you're not even aware that there's a problem? So this is where self-honesty comes in. So I love that question, Victoria. Chrissy says logic with an emotional slant. So I want to bring in something that I just saw on LinkedIn. Oh, and Mom is here. Hey, Mom, good morning to you. Late start, but I'm here with a hot cup of pomegranate pizzazz tea with garlic toast, garlic Texas toast this morning. Great to see you, Mom. Always with the yummy stuff in your cup. And then Dr. Dale says the thing about emotions is that we experience emotion before we even form reasons for having the emotions we have. Yes, and I think that, Dr. Dale, is why we have to then stop, be aware of what Pat just said, is bring it back, identify it, and name it. I want to talk about something. I don't know if we'll really have time to get to this, but one of the things they say is that we sometimes have a very narrow emotional vocabulary, which then doesn't allow us to fully experience the range of who we are, right? All we know is mad, sad, happy, joy, but there is a ton of different emotions that we experience that we need to understand. So let's look at the quote from Michelle Obama, and then let's come back and talk a little bit more about our emotions, and we need to dive into what in the world do we do. So we've had a lot of conversation about what it is, how it impacts how we show up. It begins with awareness. I saw this on LinkedIn this morning, and I thought it was great timing that I just opened LinkedIn this morning and it was here. It was posted by Kimmy, who was actually on our show, I don't know, maybe 2 seasons ago. But here's the quote. This came from Michelle Obama's book, and it says, for those of you that are watching later, it says, because here's the thing, emotions are not plans. They don't solve problems or right any wrongs. You can feel them, you will feel them inevitably, but be careful about letting them guide you. Rage can be a dirty windshield. Hurt is like a broken steering wheel. Disappointment will only ride sulking and unhelpful in the back seat. If you don't do something constructive with them, they will take you straight into a ditch. My power has always hinged on my ability to keep myself out of the ditch. Oh my goodness. I just opened up LinkedIn this morning and saw this. Dr. Pat, I want to get you to respond to these powerful words from Michelle. By the way, this is from Michelle Obama's The Light We Carry, Overcoming in Uncertain Times, from her book by that name. So Dr. Pat, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's interesting. I've just started reading her new book, and that she's who I want to be when I grow up.
Yes.
The construct or the visual of going into a ditch, and then you're faced with how deep is this ditch, and how do I get myself out of it? Mm-hmm. It's that process of having a toolkit,
right?
To be able to name it, to be able to identify what it is, write it out, look at it. I've had people draw it. So, and it's really very, very freeing. And especially when those emotions are in the workplace. I've done a lot of work with organizational change. And the number one emotion that people express in the workplace is frustration.
I was going to say frustration. Yep.
And when people draw it out, I've not seen anyone draw a ditch, but it's that kind of, I'm kind of wrapped with a cord or rope, and I can't do anything with it. And if I do, I will do something I'm going to regret.
Wow.
So she called it, Michelle Obama always calls it.
Yeah, I love it. So here's a question for you, Dr. Pat. Paulette says, is it healthy or unhealthy to compartmentalize our emotions?
Well, it depends on what we call health and unhealthy. Sometimes having an emotion is actually a very healthy thing to do, because it releases whatever it is that's been binding you. And if you're able to talk about it, you start to identify its roots, you identify its effects, its current effects on you, and how it's kept you from doing what it is you want to be doing and should be doing. I really, when you compartmentalize, it's a healthy thing to do in the moment, when you're able to say, whoa, wait a minute, what I experienced 3 years ago has nothing to do with this encounter I just had. To have that kind of dialogue with yourself, and take the appropriate action based on that realization is one of the healthiest things you can do. So compartmentalization, to be able to identify where it came from and realize it has little connection to what's going on to you right then and there, is a very healthy thing to be able to do from my experience and my point of view.
Thank you for that, and thank you for that question, Paulette. Roz, I want to come to you and talk a little bit about how how do you, because the show today is about really helping beginning to adjust your emotional thermostat. So when you are at that point, when you're triggered, what do you do? And then I'm going to come to you, Mireille, and then we're going to talk about Dr. Pat's sort of recipe for adjusting our emotional thermostat. But I want to get, Jo Beth had a comment in here that she was taught as a young girl, as well as a woman in the workplace, to stuff and mute my feelings. As a result, my response to given situations were not true to myself. In my 40s, I learned about the drama triangle that better helps me identify and communicate my feelings. Really good share, Jo Beth, because I think many women have been told we're too emotional. We get that all the time. But honestly, I don't know a man who's not emotional. I'm just going to call it what it is. Sorry, guys out there watching, but you all are just as emotional as we are. You just display that differently, right? You're no different in terms of the fact that you're not emotional. You're all logic. No, behind what you do is still being powered by emotion. So, Roz, when you find your emotional temperature getting a little hot, getting a little heated, when Jaquita Alizé, whatever, Jenkins Johnson, whatever her name is, comes out, right? So what do you do? Hey, Maria, thanks so much for joining. Glad you could make it today. All right, Roz. So how do you adjust your emotional thermostat?
I had this happen yesterday while I was on Clubhouse, and I'm a co-moderator in the morning, 5 days a week. And someone popped in a room that I hadn't seen in a long time. And so I back channeled the moderators. I said, do not bring this person on stage. Please don't. I said, and they said, what's going on? I said, I'll tell you later. Just if this person raised their hand, know not to allow them on stage. And so I had to say that. And then I had to start doing some breathing exercises, because when I tell you I was in my flesh and in my emotions, I'm like, why are you here? You don't want to be bothered with me.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? So why are you in the room? And then you stayed the entire time. So it kind of pissed me off. It triggered me. I'm not gonna lie. I had to get some girl therapy and some shopping therapy, retail therapy, to help me get over this. I have a brand new pair of shoes behind this. But I'm just saying.
Oh, girl shopping therapy.
But the whole thing was, I thought I would be okay, but I didn't. I haven't seen this person. I had to talk to this person, and then when they showed up in the room, just all this past, it came right here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was right here, and I realized that I have not fully done my self-awareness on taking care of the emotions behind that situation. So I know there's some things that I have to address, but I think I handled it well. Nobody in the audience knew what was going on. Only the moderators knew that I asked them not to bring this person up on stage.
Right.
And so that was to keep a happy room and a happy Roz.
Happy room, happy Roz. I love it.
Really, but
can I tell you one thing with Roz?
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Roz,
absolutely.
What you demonstrated is, to me, the classic definition of grace. That's what you demonstrated there. You cared about, not only you acknowledged what you were feeling, but you also cared about everybody else that was in that room.
Mm-hmm.
And that they didn't have to experience, the drama. So thank you. You demonstrated in that particular instance.
I love that, Roz, because as I was hearing you speak, the grace that Dr. Pat is saying, I didn't really hear that. I heard from you, this stuff started happening and I had to deal with it. But you know what? Our emotions are what they are. It's okay. And it's okay to feel them. So I struggle with conveying this, Dr. Pat, to others. In my workshops and the work that I do with emotional intelligence, I say emotional intelligence is not about emotional avoidance. That's not what this is. Emotional intelligence is about being aware, being able to understand, name, explore, get curious about it, and then what do you do with that information? And Roz, your and then was perfect, right? So you had the emotion, you're dealing with all that, but then what do I do? Do I act out? Do I have this person come on stage and get in this thing with them back and forth? No, I just very gracefully. And that's where people, I think, are missing it with emotional intelligence. It's the and then. So, Mireille, thank you so much for that. Great way to power our conversation, Roz. Mireille, what do you do when your temperature gets a little hot?
Oh my God, there are a lot of, a lot of emotions that I do, and I think I've shared it before, especially with my children. When things go, French comes out. I can't actually express my emotion in English anymore. It has to be, French. So when French is coming out really quickly, they know that they have to leave the room because something is gonna happen. So that's how I deal with my emotion. But I mean, most of the time, especially in a professional environment, I try to detach myself from the people that I have around. So I try to change environment. I go out, or if I can, I go for a walk or I go for a run, just to detach myself from the situation so that I can have time to analyze and really do something productive with it. Because if I stay in the environment, I have no control, and things can actually go sour. So that's my first thing in a professional environment is, okay, Mireille, get out of this environment, go and analyze. And when you know exactly how you're going to react, come back and make a decision. But don't make a decision now. Go out. And that's really how I react, especially in a professional environment. When I have a colleague who are actually pushing my button or anything, I don't react. I stop. I said, okay, go out, try to avoid this person for a while, and then when you're ready, you come back and you react. You sit down, and then you address the issue. So that's the way I normally deal with. But at home, it's different.
Maybe you should try that at home, right? Okay, everybody clear the room. Keep breathing. But it reminds me of a quote, Dr. Pat, that I heard recently, which was, never make a permanent decision based on a passing emotion, right?
Mhm.
And emotions do pass, right? So don't in the moment make a decision that you're going to regret, that could have long-term ramifications based on where you are in that moment. But Dr. Pat, I want to share your quote, and then I would love for you to elaborate a bit on that and tell us what you mean by this. So here's what you say. What's behind that?
Well, it certainly has a lot to do with one of the experiences I shared already, and that is, always being told that don't be so emotional. And of course, the readout on that for me as a person was emotions are bad. And showing them, expressing them are bad things. And as I learned more about the field and frankly through my life, I realized that emotions are not bad things. They are what make us who we are, human in every single aspect. And that was a huge aha for me. And it really kind of freed me to accept what was I was feeling about a certain situation or a person, and to be able to say, as was just said, this I'm making the decision. I'm making a selection of what is going to be in my life and what I'm going to exclude. And that is what I mean by emotion is not a four-letter word, is not, excuse the expression, crap. It isn't. It is part of what makes us human. And without emotion, we couldn't connect. We couldn't have this. We couldn't have this conversation.
We can't hear you.
Oh, sorry about that. I was muted. So, in fact, we can't connect, we can't make decisions, we can't do anything without emotion. And so it is a healthy part of us. And I think, Victoria, this is important to get your point in here. The way I deal with emotions, I try to identify them, give them names, and I analyze each one of them. How often do we stop to really ask ourselves, wow, here's what I'm feeling, but what am I thinking? So when I teach emotional intelligence and I start giving people strategies and things to be able to do to help uncover and unpack their emotions, I say to them, pause, ask what you're feeling, ask, "Oh, where's this coming from? I wonder, get curious about it, right? Why is my reaction so intense to this situation? And then ask yourself, what are you thinking? Because your thoughts are often powering and keeping that emotion and that feeling going, where maybe this event triggered it, but the event is over. What's keeping that going is often what you're thinking, right? So when you begin to digest and really break down what you're thinking and it starts feeding that, then you go, okay, right? I'm really pissed off still about the driver that cut me off a half a mile ago, who he's gone, I'm gone. But the reason I'm still angry about it is because of the way that I'm still thinking about it, right? And so really helping myself to work through some of that. I want to dive into a bit of strategy. What do we do? And I want to get to your recipe, Dr. Baxter, in terms of, I want you to walk us through this. And then I want people to just react to whichever element in this that resonates with them. But before we do that, let's do our top two. All right. So every show we do a top two of something. So for this one, it might be a little bit more challenging. You can either do your favorite or a top two. But here's the question, and then we'll come back and get your responses from the panel. And anybody, if you're out there in the audience, we want your responses as well. What we want to know is, what is the movie that you've watched several times and it still makes you laugh? What is one of your favorite movies that you still watch even after multiple times and you still laugh? So be thinking about your answers. We'll come back after this and share that darn movie that every time you put it on, you've seen it 8 times, but you still laugh. All right. So what's the one or two movies that you know, and this could be a nice way to manage emotions, right? Because when you name this, if you're in that space, maybe this is the movie you need to put on, right? To sort of lift you a little bit, get you laughing, get you in a different mood. So anybody have theirs?
I have mine.
Okay.
One of mine is called, the name of the movie is Let's Do It Again, with Sidney Poitier and Bill Cosby.
Oh,
An oldie but goodie.
yes.
And then my next one is Pretty Woman. So those are my two.
Okay. Man, Let's Do It Again. I haven't seen that movie in years. That's a good one. Really good one, Roz. And it is pretty funny. So, all right. Thanks, Roz. Dr. Pat, what about you? Do you have a movie that makes you laugh?
There's a movie that makes me laugh and lifts me. This is going to be interesting to share because I've not shared this before. Independence Day.
Oh, okay.
With Will Smith, because it's inspiring. It says, yeah, you think you're going to take this planet? Oh, I don't think so.
And then there are some funny moments, and Jeff Goldblum, I think, in that movie.
Oh,
he's hilarious.
He's hysterical.
Oh, I love it. All right, thank you. Mireille, what about you?
Oh, there's so many. I like the French actor Louis de Funès. So the troupe of Saint-Tropez is one that I don't stop laughing. And I also like the Coming to America with
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
with Eddie Murphy that I don't stop to.
That is a really, those are really good ones. So I'll share mine, and then I see we've got a couple of responses out there as well that we'll share in just a second. So one of mine is, this is the silliest movie, but True Lies with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Oh my gosh, I watched that silly movie and I will just crack up because it also has a blend. I love action, and it also has a lot of action, but it's also very silly. And so that is one of my movies that I will watch over and over and still laugh. The other one that I like is also another sort of action comedy, which is Bad Boys. The very first Bad Boys was just so fun, and the dialogue between Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, it was just kind of fun. So those are two for me that I think about that I still laugh. So Victoria says, "My cousin Vinny, Victoria, what a great movie."
That's
Oh my
true.
goodness. Oh,
That
all
is
right.
good.
Now I've got a list of movies to rewatch also. Thanks. This show is just giving me a lot to do. And then Paulette says, "Analyze This" with Robert De Niro. That was actually
Oh, yeah.
really, really good too.
That is a good one.
That is a good one. Really good. All right. Well, thanks everybody for playing along. So now back to our conversation as we move into what do we do about these darn pesky emotions, right? So, Dr. Pat, you have a sort of a formula and a recipe for managing and navigating through this. And here's what I'll share with the audience, and then you can speak to some of this, and then I would love for anyone to really comment on any one of these steps that they're either challenged with or ones that really resonates with them, something that you might feel like you do pretty well. All right, so here's your step. It's about 7 steps and if you just read the beginning of each one, that's sort of a short and sweet. So Dr. Pat, talk to us a little bit about this.
Yeah, I came up with this after truthfully a very trying time in my family, and also at work, frankly. And I said, how did I cope with this? How did I get through this? And these are some of the ways. And there are 2 in particular that I think we might not use as frequently as we might try to. One is to your body. Where's that feeling of unease or heat or amusement? Where is that in your legs? Is it in your gut? That just kind of helps me focus in on where it is, and that helps me name it, which is a very powerful thing. The other one that I think that I recommend to people is frame it and tame it. Is it really that bad? Is the world going to stop turning because of this incident or this memory or anything else that you're feeling? And to remember that this too shall pass. And that, for me, it kind of takes the tension down a couple of levels. So those are 2 in particular. Oh, and there is the next one. Focus on what's going right. I had a conversation with someone a few months ago, and it was all about what's going wrong. And I said, well, what's happening that's going right today? Even just this hour, what's going well? And that kind of also takes down the temperature for any kind of emotional situation. So those are 3 I think are really important.
I love that. I love the frame it and tame it. Because I think that's a really active process that we can get engaged in. And And then it's also an opportunity to not take ourselves so seriously, right? When we really begin to sort of tame it, there's some fun things that you can do, I think, in that one. So I love that one. So Mireille, which one of those stands out for you?
I liked framing and taming. I think it's a good one because it means that you have to, refocus on something else and really, put things in perspective because, like Pat said, it's not the end of the world. Sometimes we just react. Our reaction is we overreact in a way in some situation. Mm-hmm. And I also like the number 5, which I do. Take a break, get outside. Even 5 minutes will help, and then you come back and address the situation. Mm-hmm. When you've identified where you are in terms of your emotions, and you are ready to to move on.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I love the process that gives us, Pat. Roz, what about for you? What stood out for you?
Number 1, which was talking about the tune into your body, and then number 6, take a break. Mm-hmm. Yesterday when that happened to me, I really had to get in tune. Like, okay, get it together now. Don't lose it. And then I had to just take a quick assessment of what was going on. I had to be accountable for my feelings right then and there because that was, not the place. So those were the 2 things that I felt like I implemented yesterday in order for me to, maintain my character and grace.
Grace under fire. No, I love that. And it is. Mm-hmm. And you know what? I also really like this one, Dr. Pat. So Mom was right. Count to 10. What that counting to 10 does is engage the brain before the mouth. Oh my goodness. How often are we in the moment and this thing happens to us and we feel like I've got to respond right now. I can't let them get away with it. I'm going to come back. That they won't be able to disrespect or mistreat and all of that. And you end up opening your mouth and saying something that later on you go, wish I could pull that back. But you can't. You put it out there in the world, in the universe, and everybody heard it, and you can't take it back now. So, my mom says
there's a neurological reason for that.
What's that?
There's a neurological reason to move the activity from the amygdala, which is our, fight or flight, to our prefrontal cortex. Right. Where the executive reasoning and thinking takes place. Right. And darn if my mom wasn't right. If she said count to 10 and then you find yourself, your anger, your negativity, it goes down. It really helps a lot. It's I've pulled myself out of the fire a few times.
All right, so that's you, Dr. Pat, hitting the reverse on the car, getting out of, like, I'm not going in that ditch. I'm backing this thing up and saying, back that thing up, right? So Jo Bess is talking about her movies. Elf and Identity Thief are 2 of hers that she laughs at still. I don't know if I think I've seen Elf, but I don't know if I've seen Identity Thief. So another one to add to our list. Yeah, and then Mom said, this too will pass is one of my favorite calming statements for me and others. So thanks, Dr. Pat. All right. So we are coming to the end of the show. Wow. It has been sort of fast and furious as we went, but I think we've covered a lot of ground around this. And so let's do our coffee shot and then come back and begin to talk about what did we put in your cup today? So got it. Thank you. All right. So right after this, we're going to talk about what are we walking away from, right? What did we pour into each other today and out into the universe that we want others to leave this conversation with? So we'll begin our wrap up right after this. So as we move to wrap up another show, let's talk about what we put in your cup. Roz, what did we put in your cup today?
Just a few moments ago, Dr. Pat talked about when we count, we take that energy and move it from the back to the front where we can reason.
Right.
And I didn't know that was happening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge takeaway for me. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you, Roz. Mireille?
Uh, there's so many things that we've learned today, but for me, is about identifying and naming those emotions so that we can address them later on. Because and really the journaling part as well that Dr. Pat mentioned at the beginning. It is very important because otherwise we're just wild. It's
Yeah.
difficult to have a constructive reaction and address really those, especially those bad emotions that are building up when we are stimulated.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you so much, Mireille. Yeah, a lot of good takeaways in this one. I might have to do a mini summary for everyone on this one because I think we talked about some very specific strategies. So, Dr. Pat, tell us what you hope we put in people's cup today, and what do you want them to walk away with as they leave this conversation? And then also share how people can connect and learn more about the work that you do.
Oh, well, first of all, thank you very much for allowing me to be part of this discussion and this panel. I have a lot of emotion around this, if you couldn't tell. What I'm feeling, I'll say it that way. What I'm feeling is that it's this conversation about emotions and emotional intelligence is one that is going mainstream.
Mhm.
We are thinking about this more and more, and we're using tools. We're finding tools to be able to work with emotions, not discard them, but work with them for uh, for us to have a better life. That's really the bottom line for me. How do we use all this that we learn to have a better life, to create a better environment for us to work and live in?
Mhm. I
Um,
love that.
so to get in touch with me, I have several things. First of all, my website, drpatbaxter.com. I am also involved in doing a number of different. I have a number of different books, and also if anyone would like to have one of these cards with these, there I am, with all of these tips on how to manage those moments, just send me an email at Dr. Pat Baxter, and in the subject, ask for the PDF of this particular card. And I
Tell me
will
that link. Tell me that link again, Dr. Baxter. Oh, where should they email you?
hello at drpatbaxter.com.
Okay, I'm putting it in the comments. And then in the subject line,
The postcard of EI is what I call it.
postcard of EI. Okay, got it. All right, so I put it in the comments for us. Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. It was such a pleasure. We finally made it happen. We knew that we would. I had no doubt it was going to happen. So such a pleasure always really getting into this in the way that you think about emotional intelligence, which I think is so practical, right? Emotional intelligence is not this big woo woo thing that, it's also not about just, oh, yeah, I can control my emotions. It's much more than that. It's how do you use it? How do you use emotional intelligence to create a better life, have better outcomes, get better results as a leader, be a better partner in relationships? Emotional intelligence can help you do that. So that's always the exciting part for me. So we have Victoria, who said, "What an amazing concert of positive emotions. My cup is once again filled with awareness that emotions are human. And it is what makes us humane." Love that. Thank you so much for that, Victoria.
Wonderful.
Very nicely said. Dr. Dale, Paulette has hearts out there for us. Thank you so much. We do hope that we have put something in your cup. Here's my last drop of the day. My last drop is emotional agility, which really is that awareness and management of emotional intelligence, is the new currency required for sustainable success. Today's world is very chaotic. There's a lot going on. How do you weather this storm, whether or not you created it? And be prepared to make the emotional adjustment. What are the tools in your toolbox that you are going into this chaos armed with? Well, emotional intelligence is one of those tools. So super excited. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's show. For my guest and the panel, stay tuned for just a minute. We're going to do our short debrief in just a second. For everyone else out there, thank you so much for joining us. We take great joy and pride and delight in coming here, learning with you and sharing with you every single week when we're in season. So hopefully we'll see you back here next week, same time, same station, for another episode of the Coffee with Rhonda show. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Bye-bye.